call came on a Tuesday morning at 7:43 a.m. I remember the exact time because I was watching the digital clock on my coffee maker tick over, waiting for the brew to finish. The phone rang with a number I hadn't seen in 10 years, but I knew it immediately. Some numbers you don't forget, even when the person behind them forgets you. Dad. Marcus's voice was different, older, rougher around the edges, but underneath it was something else, something hungry. I let the silence stretch for a moment, feeling the weight of 10 years press down on that single word. Marcus. I saw the article. The Forbes article about you. Did you? I kept my voice neutral, the way I'd learned to do during 40 years of teaching high school mathematics. Never let them know what you're thinking until you're ready. Is it true? The whole thing? Which part are you asking about? I watched a cardinal land on the bird feeder outside my kitchen window. Helen had hung that feeder 20 years ago. I'd kept it filled every day since she passed. The part about the $47 million. The part about you being some kind of investment genius. Genius is a strong word. I prefer lucky. There was a pause. I could hear him breathing, that same pattern from when he was 8 years old and had broken my father's watch, trying to work up the courage to confess. Dad, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell me? When would I have told you, Marcus? During one of our 3-word text exchanges. In between your scheduled birthday messages? Silence. Then, that's not fair. Isn't it? I've been busy, Dad. You know that. Building a career takes 10 years? Dad, your mother's funeral was 10 years ago, Marcus. 10 years. You know what I've done in those 10 years? Made $47 million, apparently. No, I've eaten 3,650 dinners alone. I've celebrated 10 birthdays with a store-bought cake and a candle I blew out by myself. I've gone to 520 Sunday services and sat in the same pew where your mother and I used to sit, except now there's too much room on either side of me. Dad, I also made $47 million, but that was just something to do between 3 and 6 a.m. when I couldn't sleep because the house was too quiet. Another pause. Longer this time. I could hear something in the background, the sound of traffic maybe, or an office printer, the sounds of his important life. Can we talk about this? In person? You know where I live. Dad, please. I want to... Marcus, you've wanted to do a lot of things for 10 years. None of them involve driving 3 hours to see your father. What's different now? The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we both knew, but weren't saying. I'll come this weekend, he said finally. I'll believe it when I see it. He hung up without saying goodbye, just like he'd left after the funeral, abrupt, final, like ripping off a bandage. But bandages are supposed to protect wounds while they heal. Marcus had just ripped his off and walked away, leaving me to bleed alone for a decade. I poured my coffee and sat at the kitchen table, the same one where Marcus had done his homework every night until high school, the same one where Helen had taught him to read, sounding out words with infinite patience, the same one where we'd told him about the cancer, watching his face crumble like a sandcastle hitting high tide. The Forbes article was spread out in front of me. The Genius Retiree, How a High School Math Teacher Turned Grief into $47 million. They'd even found an old photo of me from my teaching days, standing in front of a blackboard covered in equations. I looked younger in that photo, not just in years, but in something else. Hope, maybe. Or just the luxury of assuming tomorrow would look like today. The reporter had been persistent, I'd give him that. Somehow he'd tracked patterns in market trades back to a series of anonymous accounts that, with enough digging and probably some sources I didn't want to know about, led to me. He'd called 17 times before I finally answered. Mr. Coleman, you've done something remarkable. The American dream, a teacher building a fortune through smart investing. People need to hear this story. No, they don't. You turned $5,000 into $47 million in 10 years. That's a 940,000% return. Do you understand how impossible that sounds? It's not impossible. It happened. Exactly. That's why, goodbye. But he'd published anyway. Public records, he'd said in his voicemail. The trades were all legal, all reported to the IRS. He didn't need my permission to write about facts. And now my phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, investment firms, wealth managers, and distant relatives I hadn't heard from since Helen's funeral. Amazing how money makes you suddenly memorable. I turned the phone off and went outside to the garden. October in Ohio was perfect for the last harvest. The tomatoes were heavy on their vines, that deep red that only comes when you let them ripen past when the grocery stores would pick them. Helen had taught me that. Patience, Frank, she'd say. The best things are worth waiting for. I wondered if she'd still believe that after waiting 10 years for our son to visit. The garden had been Helen's domain when she was alive. I'd helped, sure, but she was the one who knew exactly when to plant, when to water, when to harvest. After she died, I'd let it go for a month. Then 2. By the 3rd month, I couldn't stand looking at the emptiness where her life had bloomed, so I started again. Badly at first. I killed more plants than I grew that first year. But I learned. YouTube videos, library books, trial and error. Now the garden was bigger than it had ever been when Helen tended it. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, herbs she'd never tried. I gave away most of what I grew, to neighbors, to the food bank, to anyone who wanted fresh vegetables. What else was I going to do with 50 pounds of tomatoes for one old man? But it wasn't about the vegetables. It was about the routine, the purpose. The way dirt under your fingernails makes you feel connected to something real when everything else feels like it's floating away. I was pulling the last of the carrots when I heard a car in the driveway. Not Saturday yet, only Thursday. I didn't look up. Probably another reporter who'd found my address. Dad? I turned. Marcus stood at the garden gate, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my first year's teaching salary. His shoes were the kind that weren't meant for walking on actual earth. He looked successful. He looked tired. He looked like a stranger wearing my son's face. It's Thursday, I said. I couldn't wait until Saturday. Couldn't. Or didn't want to. He flinched. Both, maybe. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. My joints protested. 72 years old, and the body keeps score even when the mind pretends it doesn't. Come in, then. He followed me into the house, his eyes scanning everything like he was cataloging changes. But that was the thing. Not much had changed. Same furniture, same pictures on the walls, same magnets on the refrigerator, including his kindergarten handprint in clay painted to look like a turkey. It looks exactly the same, he said. What did you expect? Marble countertops? Gold fixtures? I don't know. You have $47 million. No, I have the same house I've lived in for 35 years. The money lives in accounts and investments. We don't socialize. He sat at the kitchen table, in his old spot. Muscle memory, probably. I poured 2 cups of coffee, his black, the way he'd started drinking it in college to seem grown up. Tell me about the money, he said. Why? Because I want to understand. The dad I knew was a math teacher who clipped coupons and drove a Honda Civic for 15 years. That dad's wife died, I said simply, and his son disappeared. Marcus's jaw tightened. I didn't disappear. I live in Chicago. You have my number. Having someone's number and having them in your life are different things. I texted. I called on holidays. I pulled out my phone, opened our message history. Would you like me to read our last year of correspondence out loud? It'll take about 30 seconds. He looked away. Happy birthday, Dad. Thanks, how are you? Good, you? Fine. I set the phone down. Riveting stuff. Really feel the father-son bond. What do you want me to say? That I fucked up? Fine. I fucked up. Language, I said automatically, the way I had when he was 12. He almost smiled. Sorry, I messed up. Why? What do you mean? Why? It's a simple question. Why did you stop coming home? Why did you stop calling? Why did 10 years pass without you setting foot in this house? Marcus ran his hand through his hair. Thinner now, I noticed. Time marking him the way it marks us all. After Mom died, being here, it hurt. Everything reminded me of her. And you reminded me of her. The way you kept everything exactly the same, like she might walk through the door any minute. So you left me alone with all those reminders? I was 28, Dad. I didn't know how to grieve, so I worked instead. 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. If I was busy enough, I didn't have to feel anything. And that worked for 10 years? No, it worked for about 6 months. After that, it was just habit. And then it had been so long, I didn't know how to come back. How do you call your father after 2 years of silence? 3 years? 5? The longer it went, the harder it got until it felt impossible. I sipped my coffee. It had gone cold. But $47 million made it possible? His face flushed. That's not... Marcus, I need you to be honest with me. Completely honest. Are you here because you missed your father, or because you found out your father is rich? He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was smaller. Both. At least he was honest. Tell me about the money, he said again. How did you do it? So I told him. After Helen died, sleep became impossible. I'd lie in bed feeling the empty space beside me like a phantom limb. The bedroom felt too big, too quiet, too full of absence. So I'd get up at 3 a.m. and sit at the computer, the ancient desktop Marcus had mocked the last time he'd visited. At first, I just read. Anything to fill the hours until dawn. News, forums, Wikipedia rabbit holes. Then I found the investment blogs. Stories of people who'd turned small amounts into fortunes through careful trading. Most of it was probably lies or luck dressed up as skill, but it gave me something to focus on. I started with $5,000 from Helen's life insurance, money I didn't need for bills. Her hospital stays had eaten through most of our savings, but the house was paid off, and my pension covered the basics. That $5,000 was extra, and extra felt wrong when Helen wasn't there to spend it with me. So I invested it. Badly at first. Lost half of it in the first month trying to day trade like some 25-year-old hopped up on energy drinks. But losing money made me angry, and anger was better than grief. So I studied harder. I approached it like I'd taught my students to approach calculus. Break it down to first principles, understand the patterns, find the derivatives. Markets are just math with emotions attached. And if you can filter out the emotions, the math becomes clearer. The first real win came 6 months after Helen died. A small biotech company I'd researched was waiting on FDA approval for a new drug. I'd read every trial report, every analyst note, every piece of information I could find. The math said they'd get approved. The market said they wouldn't. I put the remaining $2,500 on them. They got approved. That $2,500 became $15,000 overnight. Holy shit, Marcus said, then caught himself. Sorry, holy cow. I said worse when it happened. So you just kept doing that? Finding companies that would pop? No, that was luck. What came next was work. I explained how I'd taken that $15,000 and divided it into smaller bets. How I'd learned to read patterns in options trading. How I'd discovered that my 40 years of teaching had given me one invaluable skill: patience. While everyone else was trying to get rich quick, I was happy to get rich slow. A 10% gain here, 15% there. Compound interest is the most powerful force in the universe, Einstein supposedly said. He was right. By year 2, I had $100,000. By year 3, $400,000. That's when I started making bigger bets. Still careful, still researched, but bigger. A cannabis company before legalization spread. A battery manufacturer before the electric vehicle boom. A video conference platform in January 2020, 2 months before the world shut down. That last one turned $2 million into $8 million in 6 weeks. I said. Marcus stared at me. You knew COVID was coming? No. I knew that several Chinese companies were suddenly buying massive amounts of remote work infrastructure. I knew that certain medical supply chains were showing unusual activity. I knew that smart money was moving in specific directions. I didn't know why, but I followed the current. And you never told anyone? Who would I tell? You? He flinched again. I told my lawyer when I needed to restructure everything into trusts. I told my accountant because the IRS frowns on surprises. But otherwise, number. Who cares that Frank Coleman, retired math teacher and widower, figured out how to make money from insomnia and loneliness? Forbes cares, apparently. Forbes cares about the story, the American dream. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Turn tragedy into triumph. They don't care about the 3 a.m. nights staring at screens until my eyes burned. They don't care about the birthdays I celebrated with a frozen dinner and a spreadsheet. They care about the number, $47 million. That's all anyone cares about now. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, what are you going to do with it? Why? Hoping to inherit. His face went red. I didn't mean, it's a fair question. You're my only child. Helen's gone. Who else would I leave it to? So I'm in the will? There it was. The real question. The one that had probably been burning in his mind since he saw the Forbes article. You're in the will, I said. I saw him relax slightly, shoulders dropping from around his ears. You get the house, I continued. Your mother's jewelry, the photo albums, her recipe box, the garden tools, my car for what it's worth, and $50,000. He blinked. I'm sorry, what? $50,000. That's what I would have left you if I'd never made a single trade. My pension, life insurance, sale of the house, about $50,000 after taxes and expenses. But you have $47 million? Yes, I do. And I get $50,000? Correct. Marcus stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Are you fucking kidding me? Language. No, seriously, Dad. Are you out of your mind? I'm your son. Are you? I stood too, slower but steadier. Because sons visit. Sons call. Sons show up when their mothers are dying, not just for the funeral. Sons don't disappear for a decade and only return when Forbes publishes an article. That's not why I'm here. Marcus, you just admitted it was part of why you're here. Part, not all. What percentage? What? You said both. You missed me, and you found out about the money. What percentage of you is here for each reason? 60-40? 70-30? 90 to 10 inches? He stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. Can't calculate it? Let me help. You found out about the money on Tuesday. You're here on Thursday. In 10 years, you never once drove 3 hours on a Thursday to see me. The money changed the equation. The money is the variable that got you here. Without it, we'd still be exchanging 3-word texts on scheduled holidays. That's not... You don't know that. Don't I? Marcus, I taught mathematics for 40 years. I know patterns. I know probability. And I know that the probability of you showing up this week without that Forbes article is 0. He sank back into his chair. So what, you're punishing me? Giving away my inheritance because I was a bad son? I'm not giving it away. I've already given it away. Scholarships for local kids who can't afford college, funding for the food bank, a new wing for the library, some other things. When? Over the last 2 years. As the money grew, I started dispersing it. Set up trusts, foundations, all legal, all irreversible. All of it? Most of it. I kept enough to live comfortably for whatever time I have left. But $40 million? What would I do with that? Buy a yacht? I get seasick. Move to Florida. I like seasons. Travel the world? Your mother's buried here. I'm not leaving her. Marcus put his head in his hands. This is insane. Is it? I had 10 years of solitude to think about what matters. money isn't it. Easy to say when you have it. Easy to say when you've lived without everything else. I sat back down, suddenly tired. Marcus, I would trade every penny for one more year with your mother. I would trade it all for the 10 years I lost with you. Money is just numbers on a screen. Time is the only real currency, and you can't earn more of it. We sat in silence for a while. Outside, the cardinal was back at the feeder, its red bright against the gray October sky. I should go, Marcus said finally. Probably. He stood, walked to the door, then turned back. For what it's worth, I did miss you. Maybe not enough to overcome my own bullshit, but I missed you. I know. How? Because I missed you too. Every single day. He nodded, opened the door, then stopped. The $50,000. When would I get it? I almost laughed. When I die, Marcus. That's how wills work. Right, of course. He looked embarrassed. I'll call you. No, you won't. He started to protest, then stopped. We both knew I was right. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The house felt quieter than usual, which shouldn't have been possible since it was always quiet. But there are different kinds of silence. The silence of solitude, the silence of peace, and the silence that comes after you've broken something that was already broken, but at least had the dignity of pretending to be whole. I heated up leftover soup for dinner, Helen's recipe, though I'd never gotten it quite right. Her recipes were like her, impossible to replicate perfectly. You could follow every step, measure every ingredient, and still miss some essential quality that made them hers. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not unusual, but this was different from the regular insomnia. This was my mind replaying every word of the conversation, looking for the moment I could have said something different, something that might have bridged the canyon between us. But maybe canyons aren't meant to be bridged. Maybe they're meant to be acknowledged, respected, walked around. At 3 a.m., I gave up and went to the computer. The markets were moving, Asian exchanges in full swing. I watched the numbers dance, but for once, I didn't care about the patterns. Instead, I pulled up the folder I'd labeled Marcus. Every email he'd sent, every text, every photo from before Helen got sick, his college graduation, his first apartment, his engagement party. The wedding had been called off a year later, something about different life goals. I hadn't been invited to either event, just saw the photos on social media before he'd unfriended me. Not blocked, just unfriended, like we were college acquaintances who'd lost touch. I created a new document and started typing. Dear Marcus, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. The doctors say... I stopped, deleted it, started again. Dear Marcus, your mother would have handled this better. She would have known how to love you while holding you accountable. She would have found a way to be both parent and friend, to bridge the gap between discipline and forgiveness. But your mother is gone, and I'm what's left. A 72-year-old man with more money than sense and more regrets than both. You asked what percentage of you came here for me versus the money. Let me ask you something in return. What percentage of me did you mourn when Mom died? Because you lost her, but I lost everything. My wife, my best friend, my reason for getting up in the morning. And then I lost my son too, not to death but to distance. The money was something to do while I waited. Waited for you to call. Waited for you to visit. Waited for you to remember you had a father. But waiting is just another form of grief, and I've had enough of both. I don't blame you for choosing your life over mine. I blame myself for not being the kind of father you couldn't leave behind. But I also can't reward abandonment. I can't teach one last lesson from beyond the grave that says, it's okay to forget people until they're worth remembering. The $50,000 is yours. It's what I would have left you anyway. The rest has gone to people and causes that showed up while you were gone. The community college that needs new computers. The hospital that needs updated equipment. The food bank that needs expansion. They were here. You weren't. I love you. I've always loved you. But love and money are different currencies, and you only came back for one of them. Dad, I saved the document but didn't print it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Some things need to be written just to get them out of your head, not to be read. I made coffee and watched the sun rise. It came up orange through the trees, the kind of light that makes everything look like it's on fire. Helen used to call it glory light. She'd drag me out of bed to see it, even when I protested that sunrise looked the same every day. Nothing looks the same every day, she'd say. You're just not paying attention. She was right. I hadn't paid attention to how Marcus was pulling away until he was gone. I hadn't paid attention to the pain in Helen's stomach until it was too late. I hadn't paid attention to much of anything except my own hurt for 10 years. The phone rang at 8 a.m. Marcus. Dad? I'm sorry about yesterday. Okay. No, I mean it. I drove halfway home and turned around. I stayed at a hotel. I've been up all night thinking. Join the club. Can I come over? Please? Why? Because I have something to say, and I need to say it in person. An hour later, he was back at my door. Same expensive suit, but wrinkled now. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw unshaven. He looked like I felt. Coffee? I offered. Please. We sat at the kitchen table again. The morning light made everything look softer, more forgiving. I called Sarah last night, he said. My ex-fiancée. Told her about the money, about our fight, about everything. And? She laughed. Said it was the most Marcus thing she'd ever heard. Show up for the money, get angry when it's not there, storm off like a child. Smart woman. Yeah, too smart to marry me, turns out. He wrapped his hands around the coffee mug. She said something else. Said the reason she left wasn't because we had different life goals. It was because I had no life, just goals. Work goals, money goals, success goals, but no life goals, no family goals. Sounds accurate. She said I was becoming my father. I raised an eyebrow. I wasn't aware we were similar. Not you, my biological father. I set down my coffee carefully. Marcus never talked about him. Helen's first husband had left when Marcus was 2, disappeared completely. I'd married Helen when Marcus was 5, adopted him at 7. As far as I was concerned, he was my son. Biology was just cells. He left for money too, Marcus continued. Got an offer for a job in California. Didn't want a family holding him back. Mom told me when I was 18. Said she wanted me to know so I could choose not to be like him. And I became exactly like him. Different direction, same result. I chose career over family. I chose money over relationships. I chose absence over presence. You didn't abandon a child. No, but I abandoned a parent. 2 parents, actually. I just waited until Mom was dead to make it official. We sat with that truth for a moment. Dad, I don't want the money. I studied his face. Yesterday you were furious about it. Yesterday I was still that person, the one who shows up for the wrong reasons. But I spent all night thinking about Mom, about what she'd say if she could see me now. She'd be ashamed. She'd be disappointed. There's a difference. Either way, she'd be right. He pulled out his phone, looked at it, then set it aside. Do you know what my last conversation with her was about? No. She called to ask if I was coming for Sunday dinner. I said I was too busy. She said she understood, but I could hear in her voice that she didn't. She died 3 days later. She had a lot of those calls with you. I know, that makes it worse. He rubbed his face. Dad, I can't undo 10 years. I can't bring Mom back. I can't take back all the missed dinners and ignored calls and scheduled texts. But maybe I could try to do better? Try? Wrong word. I will do better, if you'll let me. And if there was no money? If the Forbes article had never been written? Then I'd probably still be in Chicago, convincing myself that success meant working weekends and that family was something you scheduled into quarterly visits. So, the money did bring you here? Yes, but not in the way you think. He leaned forward. The money showed me who I really was. Someone who only shows up when there's something to gain. Someone who became exactly what he swore he'd never be. The money was a mirror, and I didn't like what I saw. I considered this. Mirrors only work if you're willing to look. I'm looking now. For how long? What do you mean? I mean, Marcus, that revelation is easy. Change is hard. You'll leave here, go back to Chicago, back to your job, your life, your patterns. How long before you forget this conversation? How long before I become a scheduled text again? He was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone, typed something, and showed me the screen. An email to his boss. Effective immediately, I'm requesting a transfer to the Columbus office. Personal family reasons. If a transfer isn't possible, please accept this as my 2 weeks' notice. I stared at the email. You haven't sent it. I wanted you to see it first. To know I'm serious. Columbus is still 2 hours away. Closer than Chicago. He hit send before I could respond. There. Done. You just might have quit your job. Then I'll find another one. I'm good at what I do, Dad. That's never been the problem. The problem is, that's all I've been good at. I looked at him. Really looked at him. He did look different. Not just tired, but worn down to something more essential. Like pressure had finally turned coal into something clearer. Sunday dinners, I said. What? If you're serious, if you really want to try, then Sunday dinners. Every week. 5 p.m. No excuses except hospitalization or death. Every week? That's the deal. You miss one without a real reason, we're done. What about work travel? Then you decide what matters more. He was quiet, and I could see him calculating, the way he always had when faced with a hard choice. Okay. Okay. Every Sunday, 5 p.m. I'll be here. We'll see. That was 6 months ago. He's missed 3 Sundays. Once for a bout of food poisoning that had him in the ER. He FaceTimed me from the hospital bed, IV in his arm, looking miserable. Once for a wedding in California. He asked permission 2 weeks in advance. Once because of a snowstorm that shut down I-70. He called from a rest stop, frustrated enough to punch his steering wheel. Every other Sunday, he's here. Sometimes he brings wine. Sometimes he brings dessert from the bakery Helen loved. Sometimes he just brings himself, exhausted from the week, but present. We cook together, Helen's recipes mostly, though neither of us can get them quite right. We talk about his work, my garden, the news, anything except those 10 lost years. They sit between us like a sleeping dog, acknowledged but not disturbed. Slowly, things thaw. He helps me install a new garbage disposal. I help him with his taxes. He teaches me how to use a smartphone properly. I teach him how to grow tomatoes from seed. We're not rebuilding what we had. That's gone. We're building something new, something that acknowledges the break but grows around it, like a tree growing around a fence until the metal becomes part of the wood. Last month he brought someone with him. Sarah. Not the ex-fiancée, different Sarah. This one was quieter, smiled more, had dirt under her fingernails from her own garden. She wanted to meet you, Marcus said, almost shy. If that's okay? It was more than okay. She helped me cook, knew how to properly dice an onion, laughed when I told her about Marcus's first attempt at making pot roast. She fit into the kitchen like she'd always been there. After dinner, while Marcus was in the bathroom, she said, "He talks about you constantly. These dinners are the highlight of his week. He's been showing up." That's all you wanted, isn't it? For him to show up? That's all anyone wants, she smiled. He's learning. Slowly, but he's learning. 3 weeks ago, Marcus called on a Tuesday. "Dad, I need to tell you something." My chest tightened. "Are you okay?" "Yes, more than okay. Sarah's pregnant." I sat down hard on the kitchen stool. "Dad? You there? A grandchild?" "If you want to be... if you're interested in..." "Marcus, stop. Yes. Of course, yes." I could hear him breathing, quick and shallow. "Really? Did you think I'd say no? I didn't know. After everything, I wasn't sure you'd want. I want. Trust me, I want. Oh, good. That's good. When? October. Late October. A year after you came back. Yeah, funny how that worked out. Helen would have been so happy. I know, I wish... He stopped. I wish a lot of things. Me too. Last Sunday, Marcus and Sarah came for dinner as usual, but this time they brought a box. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside were photo albums I'd never seen, pictures of Marcus from the 10 years he'd been gone, his apartment in Chicago, work events, vacations, his life without me, documented in Kodak color. I thought you should see them, he said. To know I was living, even if I wasn't living right. I flipped through slowly. He aged in jumps, 28 to 30 to 35 to 38. His hairline retreated, his face filled out, his smiles became less common and more forced. You look tired in all of these, I said. I was tired. For 10 years I was tired. And now I'm tired for different reasons. Better reasons. I kept flipping and found a photo that stopped me. Marcus at what looked like a cemetery, flowers in his hand, standing in front of a headstone. The angle was bad, but I could make out part of the name. Helen. When was this? He looked at the photo. 2 years ago. Her birthday. You came back? You visited her? Every year. On her birthday. Never stayed long, never came to the house, but... Yeah. I came back. Why didn't you... What was I going to say? Hi, Dad. I'm in town to visit Mom's grave, but not you. It seemed cruel. Marcus ... I know. The whole thing was cruel. But that would have been crueler. I stared at the photo. My son, standing at my wife's grave, alone. All those years I'd thought he'd forgotten her completely, and he'd been coming back, just not to me. Every year? Every year. Sarah squeezed his hand. That's how we met, actually. I was visiting my grandmother's grave. Saw this guy talking to a headstone like he was having a full conversation. I was, Marcus said. I told her about work, about my life, about how I couldn't face you. What did she say back? He smiled, sad. Nothing. That was the problem. Mom always had something to say, and the silence was... He shrugged. It was loud. We ate dinner quietly that night. Sarah filled the gaps with stories about the pregnancy, about nursery plans, about names they were considering. Helen for a girl, maybe. Frank for a boy, maybe. Maybe, I said. We want to be sure, Marcus said. Names carry weight. After they left, I sat with the photo albums for hours. All those missing years documented. Marcus at company parties looking successful and hollow. Marcus on vacations, alone in crowds. Marcus aging without me there to see it. The next morning, Detective Reyes called. I hadn't heard from him in months. Not since I'd filed the police report about the break-in attempt 6 months ago, right after Marcus had started coming to dinners. Someone had tried to jimmy the back door while I was at the grocery store. Nothing taken, but the scratches on the lock were clear. Mr. Coleman, Reyes said, we need to talk about your son. My blood went cold. Is Marcus okay? Marcus? Yes, as far as I know. I'm calling about your other son. I don't have another son. There was a pause. Sir, we have a man in custody who claims to be your biological son. Says his name is Daniel Coleman. The room tilted. I sat down hard. That's impossible. Sir, did you have a relationship with a woman named Patricia Hayes in 1979? Patricia. I hadn't thought about her in decades. A brief relationship before Helen ended when she moved to California for a job. She'd never mentioned. We dated briefly. Did she ever contact you about a pregnancy? No, never. Well, Daniel Hayes Coleman, age 43, says otherwise. And Mr. Coleman, he says he's been watching you for the past year. Following you. He says you owe him. Owe him what? His inheritance, apparently. He saw the Forbes article. Of course he did. Everyone saw the Forbes article. Where is he now? County lockup. He was arrested trying to break into your house last night. Last night? While I was looking at photos of Marcus's lost decade, someone claiming to be my son was trying to break into my house. I'll be right down. Mr. Coleman, you don't have to. I'll be right down. The drive to the police station was 20 minutes of my mind racing. Patricia Hayes, 1979. She'd left in September. Said she had a job offer she couldn't refuse. No forwarding address, no goodbye beyond a note slipped under my apartment door. I'd been hurt, but not heartbroken. 2 years later, I met Helen, and Patricia became just another name in the history before my real life began. But if she'd been pregnant... The man in the interview room looked nothing like me. Thin, gaunt, with eyes that moved too quick and hands that wouldn't stay still. 43 years old, but looking closer to 60. Life had not been kind to Daniel Hayes Coleman, if that was even his real name. You're Frank, he said when I walked in. Not a question. I am. You're claiming to be my son. Not claiming. Am. He pulled out a worn piece of paper, a birth certificate. Daniel Hayes Coleman, born June 15, 1980. Mother, Patricia Hayes. Father, Frank Coleman. This could be fake. Could be, but it's not. He leaned forward. She talked about you all the time. Frank the teacher. Frank the good man. Frank who would have done the right thing if he'd known. Why didn't she tell me? Pride. Stupidity. Who knows? She's been dead 15 years, so we can't ask her. I'm sorry for your loss. He laughed, bitter. Are you? You didn't even know she existed anymore. That's not true. I remembered her, but she left. Because she was pregnant and scared and too proud to trap you with a kid. I would have... What? Married her? Raised me? Been father of the year? He shook his head. Doesn't matter what you would have done. What matters is what you did do, which was make $47 million while your son lived in shit. I didn't know you existed. Ignorance must be nice, comfortable. You got to play daddy to someone else's kid while your actual blood was getting bounced between foster homes. Foster homes? Mom died when I was 12. Overdose, no family, no one to take me. 7 different homes in 6 years. You learn things in foster care, like how to pick locks, like how to find people who don't want to be found, like how to survive when no one gives a damn about you. I studied his face, looking for any trace of myself, the eyes maybe, the shape of the jaw, or was I just seeing what he wanted me to see? Why now? I asked. If you've known who I was? I didn't know. Not until that Forbes article. Mom never told me your last name, just Frank the teacher. Frank from Ohio. Do you know how many Frank teachers there are in Ohio? But the birth certificate. Fake. I had it made last month. Figured it would get your attention. The room went very still. So, you're not my son. I might be. Patricia Hayes was real. She really did date a Frank who taught math. She really did leave Ohio pregnant. She really did have a son in June 1980. Named Daniel? Named Michael. But Michael sounds less biblical than Daniel, don't you think? Less convincing. I stood up. We're done here. Sit down. No. Sit down, or I'll make sure Marcus knows exactly what kind of man his father really is. I stopped at the door. Marcus? Oh, I know all about Marcus. The son who abandoned you. The son who came running back when the money showed up. The son you're rebuilding with over Sunday dinners. He smiled, and it was like looking at something broken pretending to be whole. I've been watching for months. That attempted break-in 6 months ago, that was me testing your locks, the scratches on your car door. Me. The dead roses left on your porch. Also me. Why? Because you have everything, and I have nothing. Because fairness is a fairy tale, but revenge is real. Because why should you get to play happy family when your actual family died in poverty? You just said you're not my actual family. Maybe not. But Patricia's son is out there somewhere. Dead, probably. Foster care isn't kind to soft kids. But maybe he's alive, wondering why his father never looked for him. I sat back down. What do you want? What I deserve. What Patricia's son deserves. Money. How much? Half of $47 million? Seems fair. Marcus gets his Sunday dinners and a grandchild. I get cash. Everyone wins. And if I say no, then I disappear for a while. Maybe I come back when you're not expecting it. Maybe I visit Marcus and Sarah. Maybe I show up when that grandkid is born, tell them stories about Grandpa's past. Maybe I make your life uncomfortable enough that $23 million starts to seem like a bargain. Reyes knocked on the door. Mr. Coleman, a word. Outside, he shook his head. He's lying about being your son, but the harassment is real. We've got him on attempted burglary, stalking, criminal mischief. He'll do time. How much time? With his record? 2 to 5, probably. And then? Then he gets out, and we see if he's learned his lesson. 2 to 5 years. The grandchild would be walking, talking, asking questions about why someone was watching the house. Can I have a minute? Take all the time you need. I went back in. Daniel or Michael or whoever he was sat there smiling like he'd already won. I'll give you $50,000, I said. His smile faded. That's insulting. That's what Marcus gets. That's what Patricia's son would get if he was real. $50,000 and a promise to disappear forever. Not enough. Then enjoy prison. And know that when you get out, I'll be ready. Cameras, security, restraining orders. You'll spend more time in prison than out. You're 72. You'll be dead before I'm done serving time. Maybe. Or maybe I'll live to 95 like my father did. Want to gamble? He considered this. $500,000. $50,000. $250,000. $50,000. And you sign a confession that you're not my son, that you've been harassing me, and that this money settles any and all claims forever. $100,000. $50,000. Final offer. Take it or leave it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, fine. It took 3 hours to arrange everything. Lawyers, documents, bank transfers. Daniel signed everything, took his money, and left without looking back. Reyes wasn't happy about it, but understood. Sometimes you pay for peace, he said. Sometimes you pay to protect what matters, I corrected. That was 3 months ago. Daniel disappeared, as promised. The money was nothing compared to the peace of mind, but the encounter had shaken something loose in me, made me think about unfinished business, about people who might be out there, about children who never got the chance to be claimed. I hired a private investigator, told him to find out if Patricia Hayes really did have a son, if that son was alive, if I had unknowingly been a father twice over. The report came back yesterday. Patricia Hayes had indeed had a son, Michael Hayes. Born June 15, 1980. Died February 3, 1993. Foster care, just like Daniel had said. Suicide at 13. The investigator included a photo from his foster care file. A thin boy with eyes that looked like mine, holding a math textbook, trying to smile. My son. My actual son. Dead for 30 years while I raised Marcus, taught other people's children, built a life on top of a truth I never knew existed. I showed Marcus the photo at our last Sunday dinner. I had a brother, half-brother, and yes, had. Jesus, Dad. I didn't know. I know, but still. Jesus. Sarah held the photo gently. He looks like you, Frank. Around the eyes. Yeah. What are you going to do? What can I do? He's gone. Has been for 30 years. There's no fixing this. But that wasn't entirely true. The next day I met with my lawyer, restructured the will again. Half of what remained would go to Marcus and his family. The other half would fund a scholarship, the Michael Hayes Memorial Scholarship, for foster kids interested in mathematics. That's millions of dollars, my lawyer said. Good. Maybe it'll help dozens of kids. You could name it after yourself. No, it should have his name. Someone should remember his name. The announcement went out last week. The first recipients will be chosen next fall. Marcus thinks I'm trying to buy absolution, and maybe I am. But sometimes absolution is the best you can do with money that came too late to matter. 2 days ago, another call came. Not Daniel, not the investigator, not Reyes. Marcus. Dad, you sitting down? Why does everyone ask me that? Because I have news. Good or bad? Different. Sarah's having twins. I did sit down then. Twins? Boy and a girl, we just found out. Helen and Frank? Actually, he paused. We were thinking Helen and Michael. The kitchen went blurry. I realized I was crying. Dad? Is that okay? We could... It's perfect, I managed. It's perfect. And it was. Not redemption, not fixing, just acknowledgement. The living honoring the lost, the found remembering the forgotten. Last night, I couldn't sleep again. 3 a.m., just like all those years ago. But instead of checking markets, I wrote letters. One for each grandchild, to be opened on their 18th birthdays. Dear Helen, the first began, you're named after a woman who taught me that love is patient, that gardens grow in their own time, and that some things are worth waiting for, even if the wait outlasts you. Dear Michael, the second began, you're named after an uncle you'll never meet, a boy who deserved better than he got. Your existence is not an apology for his absence, but a promise that no child in this family will ever be forgotten again. I sealed them both, put them in the fireproof safe with the rest of the important papers. Then I made one more decision. This morning I called Forbes. I want to do a follow-up article, I told the reporter who'd written the first piece. About your investment strategies? No. About what happens when money comes too late. About the son I raised who disappeared for a decade. About the son I never knew existed who died in foster care. About how $47 million can't buy back time or bring back the dead. That's a very different story. It's the real story. The first one was about numbers. This one is about what numbers can't fix. When can we talk? How about now? So I told him everything. Marcus's decade of absence, Michael's short, tragic life, Daniel's con game, the scholarships, the restructured will, the grandchildren who would carry names forward like torches in the dark. Why tell this story? He asked when I finished. Because everyone who read that first article thinks money solves problems. It doesn't. It just creates different ones. And sometimes by the time you have the money to solve the old problems, they've become unsolvable. That's pretty dark. It's honest. Print that. The article comes out next week. Marcus is nervous about it, worried about his reputation, his job, how people will see him. I told him that's exactly why it needs to be printed, because reputation is what others think of you. Character is what you think of yourself, and for too long both of us have worried about the wrong one. Sarah thinks it's brave. She's wrong. It's not brave to tell the truth after everyone who could be hurt by it is gone. Patricia is dead. Michael is dead. Helen is dead. The only people left to judge are the living, and we've already judged ourselves harder than anyone else could. But maybe that's enough. Maybe the point isn't absolution or redemption or fixing what's broken. Maybe it's just acknowledgement. Yes, this happened. Yes, it mattered. Yes, we failed. And yes, we're still here, trying to do better with whatever time is left. Tonight is Sunday. Marcus and Sarah will be here at 5 p.m. We'll make Helen's pot roast, and it will almost taste right. We'll talk about the pregnancy, about names, about the nursery that needs painting. We'll avoid talking about the article, about Michael, about the 10 years of silence. But after dinner, when Sarah is in the bathroom and Marcus is helping with dishes, I'll tell him something I should have said months ago. I forgive you. He'll stop, dish towel in hand, and look at me. For what? For leaving. For the 10 years. For only coming back because of the money. Dad, and I need you to forgive me. For what? For not being the kind of father you couldn't leave. For letting my hurt become bigger than my love. For making you feel like you had to earn your place at this table when your place was always set, even when you weren't here to fill it. He'll probably cry. I probably will too. Two grown men in a kitchen, washing dishes and washing away years of silence with soap and honesty. And tomorrow, I'll visit two graves. Helen's, where I go every week, to tell her about the grandchildren she'll never meet but somehow already knows. And Michael's, a small marker in the county cemetery that I had installed last week. Nothing fancy, just his name, his dates, and 3 words. Finally found. Forever remembered. The Forbes article will run with a different headline than the first one. Not the genius retiree, but the cost of millions, a father's reckoning. It will probably get less attention. Redemption sells better than regret. But it will be true, and sometimes that's all you can offer. The money is mostly gone now. Scholarships, donations, trusts for the grandchildren. I kept enough to live on, enough to maintain the house, enough to buy ingredients for Sunday dinners. The rest is doing what money should do, creating opportunities for people who need them more than I need numbers on a screen. Marcus asked me last week if I regretted giving it away. No, I said. I regret what I had to lose to make it. I regret what I couldn't fix with it. But giving it away? That's the only thing about it I don't regret. You could have been set for life. I'm 72 with a bad heart and good insurance. I am set for life, however much life that is. Don't talk like that. Like what? Honest? I smiled. Marcus, your mother's been gone 10 years. Your brother's been gone 30. Every day I get is borrowed time, and I'd rather spend it here in this kitchen, with you and Sarah and eventually those grandchildren, than on some beach somewhere counting money I'll never spend. Brother, he said quietly. I had a brother. You did. You do. Death doesn't unmake relationships, it just changes them. Do you think he would have liked me? I think he would have been grateful to have a brother at all. Marcus nodded, wiping his eyes. The twins will know about him. About both their uncles, the one who lived and the one who didn't. Thank you. The sun is setting now. October light, the kind that makes everything gold. The cardinal is at the feeder, same as every evening. The kitchen smells like pot roast. The table is set for 3, soon to be set for 5. This is wealth. Not the millions I made in the dark hours of grief, but this. A son who came back, a daughter-in-law who fits, grandchildren on the way, and enough time left to see at least some of their story unfold. Helen always said money wasn't the answer. She was right. But sometimes money is the question that leads you to the answer, even if that answer is just, show up, be present. Set the table even when you don't know if anyone's coming. Someone usually does, even if it takes 10 years, even if it comes too late, even if all you can do is forgive what can't be fixed and fix what's left to fix. The doorbell rings, 4:58 p.m. Marcus is early, which is new. Through the window, I can see Sarah helping him unload something from the car. Boxes, several boxes. I open the door before they can knock. What's all this? Marcus sets down a box, catches his breath. Mom's things, from the attic. I've been going through them. I told you years ago you could have anything. No, Dad. Not for me. For you. For us. For the twins. They bring in 4 boxes, each one labeled in Marcus's handwriting. Photos, letters, recipes, baby things. Sarah opens the recipe box first. Marcus said Helen had a secret to her pot roast that you've never quite figured out. Coffee, Marcus says. She added a tablespoon of black coffee to the braising liquid. I remembered suddenly last week. Just came to me out of nowhere. I stare at him. Coffee? Coffee. She told me when I was maybe 10. Said it was her mother's secret, and now it was ours. And you just remembered this? The mind's funny. Holds on to things you don't know you're carrying. We try it that night. The pot roast is perfect. For the first time in 10 years, it tastes exactly like Helen's. Sarah cries a little. Hormones, she says. But I see Marcus wiping his eyes too. After dinner, we go through the boxes. Photos I'd forgotten existed. Helen pregnant with Marcus. Marcus's first steps. His high school graduation where Helen cried through the entire ceremony. Our 25th anniversary party. The one where Marcus gave a speech that made everyone cry. I don't remember that speech, I say. Marcus pulls out his phone, scrolls for a moment. I saved it. Never deleted it. He reads, "My parents taught me that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every day. My dad chooses to love my mom by making her coffee exactly how she likes it every morning. Too much cream, not enough sugar. My mom chooses to love my dad by laughing at his terrible math jokes, even though she's heard them all 100 times. They choose to love me by being here, always here, even when I don't deserve it. Especially when I don't deserve it. That's what love is. Showing up, staying put. Choosing the same person over and over, even when it would be easier not to. Happy anniversary, Mom and Dad. Thank you for choosing each other. Thank you for choosing me." The kitchen is quiet except for the tick of the clock. "I wrote that when I was 25, Marcus says. Then I spent the next 13 years forgetting everything I said. You remembered eventually. Too late for Mom to see it." "She knew," Sarah says quietly. "Mothers always know their children will come back. It's the waiting that's hard, not the doubt." In the second box, we find letters. Love letters between Helen and me from before we were married. Letters from Marcus at summer camp. And at the bottom, an envelope with my name on it in Helen's handwriting. Unopened. "When did she—" "It was in her jewelry box," Marcus says. "The one I was supposed to take after the funeral but didn't because I couldn't face it. Sarah and I were cleaning out the Chicago apartment for the move, and I finally opened it. This was inside. My hands shake as I open it. My dearest Frank, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and you're still here, which means you're probably not sleeping, not eating right, and spending too much time alone. Stop it. I know you. I know you'll mourn properly, too properly. You'll keep everything exactly as I left it. You'll water the plants I planted. You'll make the meals I taught you. But Frank, that's not living. That's haunting yourself. So here's what you're going to do. Find something that's yours, not ours. A hobby, a passion, something I never touched. Make it yours completely. When Marcus pulls away, and he will because grief makes us stupid, let him go. But leave the door open. He'll come back. They always do if the door stays open. Take that money we saved and do something reckless with it. I know, the math teacher in you is horrified. But Frank, we saved that money for someday. Well, someday is now, and I'm not there to spend it with you. So spend it. Make it grow. Make it matter. Make it into something that would make a good story. Fall in love again. I see you shaking your head, but I mean it. Not with someone else. I'm not that generous. Fall in love with life again. With mornings. With terrible coffee at that diner. With the way snow looks before anyone's walked on it. Fall in love with being alive, even when being alive hurts. When the grandchildren come, and they will, tell them about me. But more importantly, show them who you are. The man who can find patterns in chaos. The man who believes every problem has a solution if you're patient enough to find it. The man who loved me so well that even death couldn't break it. I'm not there, Frank, but I'm not gone. I'm in every tomato you grow from the seeds I saved. I'm in every perfect pot roast. Remember the coffee. I'm in Marcus's eyes when he finally remembers to really look at you. I'm in the mortgage we paid off early, and the garden that comes back every spring and the cardinal that visits the feeder like clockwork. Take care of yourself, my love. Not for me. I'm beyond needing that. For you. For Marcus. For the grandchildren I'll never meet but somehow already love. All my love, Helen. P.S. That money we saved? I had a dream once that you turned it into millions. Crazy, right? But if anyone could figure out how to make money multiply like one of your equations, it's you. Give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? You get rich and have to figure out what to do with it? There are worse problems, my love. I have to read it twice before I can speak. She knew. She knew about the money before I even started. Not knew, Sarah says. Hoped. She hoped you'd find something to do with your pain besides just carry it. And I did. I turned it into $47 million. And then you turned that into something else, Marcus adds. Scholarships, donations, connections. You turned money back into meaning. Your mother would have done it better. No, Marcus says firmly. She would have done it differently. But not better. Just different. We go through the rest of the boxes slowly, carefully. Each item is a small resurrection. Helen's handwriting on the back of photos, her notes in cookbook margins, a lock of Marcus's baby hair that makes Sarah tear up again. The twins will have so much family history, she says. So many stories. Too many, maybe, I say. No such thing, Marcus says. I spent 10 years with no stories because I couldn't bear to remember them. Now I want them all, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. At the bottom of the last box, wrapped in tissue paper, is something I haven't seen in 20 years. A small ceramic handprint, painted green, with Marcus, age 4, written on the back. I thought we lost this in the move, I say. Mom saved everything, Marcus says. She just saved it where we wouldn't look until we were ready to find it. Like the money, I say, hidden in plain sight. Like forgiveness, Marcus adds, like coming home. Sarah excuses herself to the bathroom. The twins are playing havoc with her bladder. Marcus and I sit with the boxes between us, surrounded by the evidence of a life well lived, even if we didn't always live it well. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Do you really forgive me? Not just saying it, but really. I think about this. Do you know what I did every Sunday for 10 years? Went to church? After church. I drove by your old apartment, the one you had before Chicago. It's been 3 different businesses since you left, but I still drove by. Every Sunday. Why? Hope, I guess. Stupid hope that maybe you'd be there. Maybe you'd come home without telling me. Maybe I'd see your car and know you were back. Dad, the thing about forgiveness, Marcus, is that it's not a feeling. It's a decision. I decided to forgive you the first time I drove by and you weren't there. I just had to keep deciding it, every Sunday for 10 years. So yes, I forgive you. 520 times over, I forgive you. He nods, unable to speak. But Marcus? Yeah? You have to forgive yourself too. That's the harder part. I'm working on it. Work faster. The twins won't wait for you to be ready. They'll just arrive, and suddenly you'll be a father, forgiven or not. Sarah comes back, moving carefully, one hand on her back. You okay? Marcus asks. Fine. They're just active tonight. I think they like the stories. She sits back down and we continue through the photos. There's one of Helen and me on our first date, looking impossibly young. One of Marcus taking his first steps. One of the 3 of us at Christmas. Marcus, maybe 7, grinning over a bike we'd stayed up until 3 a.m. assembling. You gave me that bike, Marcus says. You remember? Red with silver handlebars. I rode it until the wheels fell off. Literally, the wheels actually fell off. And you fixed them. Every time. You'd get out your tools and fix them. That's what fathers do. No, Marcus says. That's what you do. Not every father. You. We pack the boxes back up carefully, but differently. Some things will go to Marcus and Sarah's new house in Columbus. Some will stay here. The recipes we copy. One set for each house. The photos we'll scan and share. The baby clothes will wait for October. As they're leaving, Marcus stops at the door. Dad, next Sunday, can we do something different? Different how? I want to visit Mom's grave. Together. And then Michael's. I want to tell them about the twins. They know. Maybe. But I want to tell them anyway. Then we'll tell them. They leave, and the house settles into its familiar quiet. But it's different now. Fuller somehow. Like the echoes of laughter have taken up permanent residence in the walls. I sit at the kitchen table with Helen's letter, reading it one more time. That line about falling in love with life again. I think maybe I have. Not the way I loved it before. That's gone. But a new way. A way that includes loss and includes finding. Includes silence and includes Sunday dinners. Includes a son who left and a son who never got the chance to leave, and grandchildren who will never have to question whether they're wanted. The phone rings. It's the reporter from Forbes. Mr. Coleman, I've finished the article, but I wanted to fact-check something. You said you gave away most of the money. The records show you kept about $3 million. That's still a significant amount. It's for the twins. The grandchildren, college, medical school, whatever they need. And for Marcus and Sarah if something happens to me before the kids are grown. So you did leave him an inheritance? No, I left him a responsibility. The money comes with strings. He has to manage it for them. Teach them what it means, what it costs, what it can and can't do. That's a lot of trust for someone who disappeared for 10 years. People change. And if they don't, the trust has safeguards. The law firm has instructions. Can I include this in the article? Include everything. The whole truth. Let people judge for themselves. After I hang up, I go outside to the garden. It's too dark to work, but I can see the outline of the beds, ready for winter cover. In the spring, I'll plant again. Tomatoes from Helen's seeds. New vegetables Marcus and Sarah want to try. Maybe a small plot for the twins when they're old enough to get their hands dirty. The cardinal is sleeping somewhere, but he'll be back tomorrow. They always come back. Inside, I wash the dishes from dinner. The pot roast pan, the plates, the glasses. Each one gets dried and put away exactly where Helen kept them. Not because I'm haunting myself, but because some things are worth keeping exactly as they are. It's 10 p.m. when I finally sit down at the computer. Not to check markets. I haven't done that in months. Instead, I open a new document. Dear Helen and Michael, I type. Your father is finally coming home. Not a suicide note. I've got years left if my heart cooperates, but a different kind of ending. The end of running. The end of hiding. The end of letting silence be the loudest voice in the room. Tomorrow, Marcus and I will visit the graves. We'll bring flowers. We'll tell Helen about the twins, about the pot roast secret, about the letter she left. We'll tell Michael that he has a brother who wants to know him, even if only through stories and stone. We'll tell them both that love doesn't end just because life does. And then we'll come home and plan for the future. A nursery to paint, names to finalize, car seats to install, all the beautiful mundane work of continuing. The Forbes article will run Monday. People will read it and judge. Some will think I'm cruel for not leaving Marcus the millions. Some will think I'm foolish for giving him anything at all. Some will wonder why money had to be the thing that brought us back together. But they won't understand the real truth. Money didn't bring us back together. Loss did. My loss of Helen. Marcus's loss of direction. The mutual loss of 10 years we can't reclaim. Money was just the excuse we needed to finally face what we'd lost. And what we still had left to lose if we didn't try. The house creaks and settles. The clock ticks toward 11. And somewhere in Columbus, my son is probably lying awake, feeling the weight of what we've rebuilt and what we're still building. I close the computer and head to bed. For the first time in years, I don't check the locks twice. I don't leave lights on. I don't do any of the rituals that have kept me safe, but also kept me stuck. Instead, I trust. Trust that tomorrow will come. Trust that Marcus will show up. Trust that Sarah and the twins will be healthy. Trust that Michael's memory will be honored through the scholarships. Trust that Helen knew what she was doing when she told me to fall in love with life again. The money is mostly gone, given away to people who need it more than I need numbers on a screen. But what's left? This house, these Sundays, these grandchildren coming. That's wealth that compounds differently. Not in percentages or portfolios, but in presence, in showing up, in staying, in choosing to rebuild rather than just remember. $47 million. That's what it cost to get my son back. Not because I paid him, but because that's what it took for both of us to realize what actually mattered. If I'd known that 10 years ago, I'd have gladly paid double. But you can't buy time back. You can only buy what comes next. And what comes next is October. And twins. And Sunday dinners with the pot roast finally tasting right. And Marcus, my son, coming home not for money, but for the harder currency of forgiveness and the compound interest of love that waited, patient as seeds for the right season to grow again.